Hello and welcome to a clip about the Severn House publications of some of Philip K. Dick's novels and a look at some works which are associated with them that you may or may not know about. So the first book by Philip K. Dick published in Severn House, which I want to talk about, is I believe the earliest one of the several they published. I think I have them all, I'm entirely certain, but I've never seen any others, and it's the Cosmic Puppets. Just to move in a little bit there on that. Now this is obviously long out of print. These were issued in the 1980s and mostly they went to libraries and they're very sought after now, and I bought them at the time. And the Cosmic Puppets is one of Philip K. Dick's earliest books, and broadly speaking you could say it's a fantasy novel. It sort of covers the opposing forces of good and evil in a small town, and there's the Grafton edition right next to it in A format. I'll just do a quick size comparison here, and there we go. So there's the A format Grafton edition on top of the Octavo Severn House edition, so that gives you an idea of the size difference. So the hardcover is quite small. Just to take a closer look at that, we'll turn his spine on. Nice yellow lettering there, the Severn House sigil at the bottom, and I'll turn over the back. Very plain back cover there, showing the classic comment by John Brunner, which is on loads and loads of Dick's books from the 70s and 80s, and a comment from Norman Spinrad as well. Obviously loved PKD and they were friends, they knew each other. So just to show you the inside, nothing special, but a really nice book, one of his finest early books, and as I say, it does have fantasy elements, so well worth checking out. So next up we have the Ganymede Takeover, which is copyrighted 1967, though I thought it was written prior to that. And if I just zoom in a little bit, you'll see in tiny letters the co-author Ray Nelson is credited. On the old Arrow paperback that I've got somewhere, you know, the billing is more, shall we say, of similar stature, and this I believe was Ray Nelson's first novel, and this was Philip K. Dick's first fully collaborative novel. Of course he did one with Roger Zelazny as well, because Dies Irae, which is far more famous. This is a fairly routine alien invasion type adventure, as you see, really beautiful Severn House hardcover. I do like these Severn House books. They're very simple, as I say, they mostly went to libraries, but they are quite uncommon these days, and I think one or two of them are actually maybe world first hardcovers. They're certainly UK firsts, and they are quite sought after, as I say. So Ray Nelson, there's one of Ray Nelson's books. This is a copy of Virtual Zen, which I think he wrote in the 90s, and I've had this for a little while. I've not read it yet, and Virtual Zen, a classic sort of cyberpunk title. I'll just zoom in there. What a cover. It's about a sort of reggae star, I believe, in the future. I'm yet to read it, as I say. So Ray Nelson, a fairly obscure figure, though he's probably more famous than you'd think, because he wrote a short story called 8 o'clock in the Morning, which was filmed by John Carpenter in the late 80s as They Live. I've never been very fond of They Live by John Carpenter. I've watched it several times. I always want to like it. I think the themes are really good, the idea is good, because of course Ray Nelson is a good writer. You should try and pick some stuff up by him. He's quite obscure but well worth looking at, and obviously if Dick worked with him, they weren't only mates. Dick obviously felt he was well worth working with. And what I really don't like about They Live is I feel the script is rather dumbed down compared to, say, something like Prince of Darkness, which is a much better film from the same sort of period by Carpenter. But it's more the casting of, is it Roddy Piper, the wrestler, and that interminable fight scene, which is just ridiculous. And I know people, fans of Gonzoid cinema, like it, but to me it really lets a side down. But I guess the message from the film gets across. So that's what Ray Nelson is most famous for. So if you haven't read it, do pick up his first novel with Philip K. Dick. It's still in print, of course. All of Dick's works are in print pretty much now, most of the time. It is a minor one, as I say, but do try and get it. So you're probably wondering at this stage why we're suddenly back in the hideout. Well, battery problems with the Nikon suddenly ran out, typical. So we're back here so I can complete this in a timely fashion. And moving on swiftly to the next Severn House PKD, we have The Crack in Space, which now in paperback is known as Cantata 140. I used to have, I think, a Methuen paperback of this, and this is another great Severn House production there. As all of these long out of print, and this one was first published in 1966 by Ace Books. So that would have been the first, which would be a paperback original. So again, quite sought after. It's a minor one. It's sort of a time travel thing. There are certain similarities to Ubik with things evolving backward in time, and there's subplots about Neanderthal type cavemen. It's a bizarre book, like a lot of Dick's books. It's a minor one, but it's great fun. So that's worth watching out for. I think at the moment these Severn House books are fetching at least £30 to £35, and the main problem, as I say, is because they mostly went to libraries. They're hard to get a good nick. I bought them new, as I say. I was lucky. So moving on, another Severn House book. This has the same jacket as the Grafton paperback, We Can Build You. And right next to this android of Adolf Hitler, you can see PKD is there. And of course, he's there behind me. Thanks, Phil. And this is unusual in Dick Silver because it's a first-person novel, and very few of his science fiction novels are first-person. You don't really get that coming up till later on with another book I'll describe, and also a book called The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, which is a mainstream novel, which was published in a science fiction livery by Grafton in the 80s. And that was pretty much his last book. This is about robots. Because it's a first-person narrative, it's very different. It has a character called Pris in it, which of course is a bit of a reference to Pris Stratton in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, aka Blade Runner, the PKD everybody knows. And it's a fun read. I've not read it for years. I must reread it actually, because I do like his first person mode, because that's an uncommon mode for him. And finally, the final Severn House book that they did of PKD's work is one of my very favourite Dick novels, a very underrated novel, and my favourite late novel by him, the absolutely stunning and astonishing Radio Free Album Earth. This is UK first hardcover, and this is part of the Luce Valis trilogy, which is a thematic trilogy which comprises this book, a book called The Divine Invasion, and of course the famous Valis. Now, everybody goes on about Valis. Valis is the book which does divide a lot of people. It's not an easy read, and for that reason I'm going to come back to it. It does rather annoy me. It's not Valis that annoys me, it's the response to it. The Sunday supplement response to Philip K. Dick is what I call it, which I'll come back to. So Radio Free Album Earth is an alternate version of Valis. It's much more straightforward, it's much more clearly written, it is less ambitious, but it's more successful. It's very gripping and exciting, and it describes a future America which is being overtaken by something called a ram check. I'm going to read from the jacket flap here. As America gasps in the stranglehold of a skull-crushing totalitarian regime, a supernatural intelligence speaks from the stars. Now, the totalitarian regime is a reference to Dick's paranoia in the 70s about Richard Nixon and Watergate, and he felt that all sorts of government agencies were spying on him. This is the stuff of legend about Dick, and I find this less interesting than really looking at his minor works, which I think are underrated. But we'll go on. A ram check, very dramatic word. The word scratched in the sidewalk of the president's childhood home. A ram check, the name of the subversive society with no official membership, whose sole purpose is to overthrow the American government. A ram check, the word printed on a book which contains the president's signature, a book in the hands of a Communist Party organizer. And of course, Dick was paranoid about all sorts of things, communism included. And he wrote a novel about communism in the 50s. I think it was his third mainstream novel, Gather Yourselves Together, which is stiff in parts and well worth a look. A ram check, the name of a woman who may hold the key and who only has weeks to live. Will the agents of the Omniscient succeed in their mission of liberation? And the Omniscient supernatural agency is Valis, the vast active living intelligence system, an alien satellite orbiting the Earth, described in the novel Valis, so you see a tie straight away. Or will the seek and destroy tactics of President Ferris F. Fremont extend the mind-numbing grip of the antagonist across the parameters of the free world? This is a fantastic book. It's really exciting, it's gripping, it's got brilliant ideas in it. And there's a writer in it called Nicholas, who is Nicholas Brady, who is basically Philip K. Dick, and it describes some of the events which Dick had. There was this whole thing about a beam of pink light that struck him, and this is something the Sunday Sevens go on and on about. I find it really tedious, and I'm not really that interested in it, because I think it's been overstressed at the expense of some of his neglected early work. So read this; it's absolutely brilliant. More recently, I think this must be about 10 years ago, in America, a feature film was made of Radio Free Albemarle, which hasn't had a UK release. This is an American DVD. It was virtually crowdfunded, and it's got Alanis Morissette in it, of all people. And it's a good, faithful adaptation. The casting doesn't quite nail it. The guy who plays Nicholas Brady is good. The lead protagonist, not quite so good. It's worth tracking down. It's been shown at a few film shows. You can probably stream it somewhere now. You know what it's like. 10 years ago, the world was a different place to film. So Radio Free Albemarle, one of the very few Philip K. Dick films which is based on a novel. There are only 3, of course. There's Blade Runner, there's this one, and there's a French film called Barjo, which is a version of Confessions of a Crap Artist, which is the only one of Dick's novels published in his lifetime, and which is an alternate version of his early novel, Time Out of Joint. So I've never seen that, never managed to track it down. There's probably bootlegs out there. Hopefully somebody will get their act together and issue it one day with some nice English subtitles in a pristine Blu-ray edition, fingers crossed. In the meantime, look out for this. It's fantastic. So that's a rundown on the Severn House books. So I'll just run through them very quickly again for you, so watch out for them. Cosmic Puppets, which I have here somewhere. Cosmic Puppets. The Ganymede Takeover with Ray Nelson. The Crack in Space, aka Cantata 140. As you see, these are mostly minor books. We Can Build You, and The Magnificent Radio Free Albemarle, one of my favourite Philip K. Dick books. I read everything. I got into Dick in the late 70s, and I'd read it all by the time they started to publish the unpublished books in the mid-80s. So I've been a dyed-in-the-wool fan for a long time before Blade Runner, and obviously older guys than me were doing much before that. So those are the Severn House ones. Watch out for those. They're lovely. I'll do another Severn House video at another point. And just to talk about 2 more associational works, which, 2 editions of the same one, which you might not be aware of. Again, this is long out of print. There was a B format reissue from an American publisher a few years ago. This is the novel Philip K. Dick is Dead, Alas, by Michael Bishop, wonderful humanist SF writer who we hear too little from. This is an old Grafton, my beloved Grafton striking again, faded as the day is long. On the cover there, you can see Richard Nixon in the background and PKD there in the foreground. And every time I look at this cover, it makes me think of that wonderful song by the Manic Street Preachers, The Love of Richard Nixon. Brilliant, brilliant record. And this is similar in its tone, theme, plotting and structure in all sorts of ways to Radio Free Albemarle, but there's lots of Michael's characteristic originality. And he's a real humane guy, Michael, a lovely guy. We interacted a little bit when I put one of his books in 100 Must-Read Science Fiction Novels. That was Ancient of Days, which is a fantastic book. And watch out for that. It's very hard to get secondhand now because it really does need a reissue. And I think it should be in Golank's Masterworks. I know I keep saying that, but it really does. Or hopefully maybe HarperCollins Voyager, you could bring it back. Maybe Jane Johnson or whoever's in charge here these days is listening. So that's that. I've got American first of it here because in America there's a different title. And the title is The Secret Ascension. So Philip K. Dick is Dead, Alas is the UK title, which is interesting because when this was published, Dick was probably more famous in the UK than in America, even though he'd sold loads of books there over the years. So that's the first edition there. So The Secret Ascension, aka Philip K. Dick is Dead, Alas, and that comes from a little rhyme in the book, which is Philip K. Dick is dead, alas. Let's all queue up and kick God's ass. And maybe we should, because he was taken from us far, far too soon. So I hope you enjoyed that. This is Outlaw Bookseller signing out, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.